The flame from the oil lamp danced across her face as she looked up at him. Sarah McKenna, 46, and alone for 3 winters now, felt something she thought had died with her husband. The stranger standing in her doorway was bleeding, his shirt torn from a bullet graze, snow melting off his broad shoulders onto her wooden floor. "Please," he said, voice rough as gravel. "My horse is lame. Just need shelter till morning." She should have said no. A woman alone, miles from town, letting in a man she'd never seen before. But something in his eyes, not desperation, something deeper. "You can sleep by the fire," she heard herself say. Jack Rivers stepped inside, and the wind slammed the door shut behind him. Neither of them knew that in 2 days everything would change. That forbidden desire would bloom in the Colorado snow. That secrets would surface which could destroy them both. What happens when a woman's buried heart collides with a cowboy's dangerous past? Drop a like if you're ready for this wild ride. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from tonight? Sarah's hands shook as she heated water on the stove. Not from the cold. She'd grown used to Colorado winters. It was him. The way he moved through her small cabin, like he belonged there. The way his presence filled spaces that had been empty too long. "Shirt off," she said, not meeting his eyes. "That wound needs cleaning." Jack hesitated, then pulled the bloodied fabric over his head. Sarah's breath caught. His chest was a map of scars, old bullet wounds, knife cuts, the hard life of a man who lived by his gun. But it was his eyes that undid her. Blue as mountain lakes, watching her with an intensity that made her feel like a woman again, instead of just a widow waiting to die. "You live here alone?" he asked as she dabbed whiskey on his shoulder. 3 years now." Her touch was gentle, professional. She'd patched up her husband plenty of times, but this felt different. Electric. "My husband passed. Lung sickness from the mines." "I'm sorry. And you?" "Family." Jack's jaw tightened. "None that claim me." She bandaged the wound in silence, acutely aware of his breath on her hair, the warmth radiating from his skin. When she stepped back, their eyes met and held. Something passed between them, recognition of shared loneliness, maybe, or hunger. "I got stew," she said quickly. "Not much, but—" "Obliged." They sat at her small table, the storm howling outside. Sarah watched him eat, noting the careful way he held his fork, the way his eyes never stopped moving. A man used to danger. "What brings you out in weather like this?" she asked, looking for someone. "Fellow I used to know." Jack paused, studying her face in the lamplight. "You ever hear of a Tommy McKenna?" Sarah's spoon clattered to the table. The color drained from her face. "What did you say?" "Tommy McKenna. About 25, brown hair, green eyes like yours. We worked the same claim in California, for near 6 months. Tommy." The word came out as a whisper. "Tommy's my son." Jack went still. "Your son? He left 2 years ago to find gold. I haven't heard from him since." Sarah's voice broke. Is he alive?" "Last I saw him, yes. But we got separated during a claim dispute. Men with guns came in the night. I barely got out myself." Sarah was crying now. Tears of relief, of fear, of a grief so deep it had hollowed her out. Without thinking, Jack reached across the table and took her hand. Her fingers were small, work-roughened, but warm. So warm. "I'll find him," Jack said. "That's why I'm heading west." To find Tommy and settle what happened. Sarah looked at this man who'd known her son, who'd risked his life for Tommy, and felt something crack open in her chest. Not just gratitude, something darker, more dangerous. "The barn's too cold," she said finally. You can sleep by the fire. Jack nodded, not trusting his voice. He'd been running for months, staying one step ahead of men who wanted him dead. But here, in this warm cabin, with this beautiful, broken woman, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. As Sarah climbed the ladder to the loft, Jack spread his bedroll by the fire. Above him, he could hear her moving around, getting ready for bed. When the sound stopped, he stared up at the ceiling and wondered what kind of man desired his best friend's mother. The kind of man who'd been alone too long, maybe. The kind who recognized the same hunger in her eyes. Sarah woke before dawn, the way she had every morning for 3 years. But this time, she heard breathing that wasn't her own. She climbed down the ladder quietly and found Jack sitting by the dying fire, fully dressed, staring into the embers. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Not much of a sleeper these days." She moved to the stove, started coffee. In the growing light, she studied his profile. Strong jaw, the kind of face that would age well, if he lived long enough. "Tell me about Tommy," she said, "in California." Jack's eyes softened. "He talked about you every day. Said his mother was the strongest woman in Colorado. Said he was going to strike it rich and come home to take care of you proper." Fool boy. But she was smiling. "He doesn't need to take care of me. I just need him home." That's what I told him. Then why didn't he listen? Jack was quiet for a long moment. Because he's ashamed. The claim played out. "We lost everything in that dispute. He thinks he failed you." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, Tommy." "He's proud. Like his mother, I'd guess." Their eyes met across the small space. The comparison hung between them. She could see Tommy in Jack's description, but she could also see the differences. Tommy was her sweet boy, earnest and eager. Jack was harder, dangerous. A man who'd seen too much and done things he couldn't take back. "Why are you really looking for him?" she asked. Jack's jaw tightened. "Because it's my fault those men came. My past caught up with us. Tommy got dragged into something he had nothing to do with." "What kind of past?" "The kind that gets people killed." Sarah poured coffee, handed him a cup. Their fingers brushed, and she felt that electric jolt again, stronger this time. "Are you in danger now?" "Always." "Then why risk coming here? Why not just ride on?" Jack met her eyes. "Because Tommy said if anything ever happened, I should make sure you knew he loved you." "And because..." He stopped. "Because what?" "Because I wanted to see the woman who raised a man like Tommy McKenna." The words hung in the air between them. Sarah felt her face flush, her pulse quicken. This was wrong. This man was her son's friend, her son's age. But when he looked at her like that... "I should check your bandage," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Jack set down his coffee, started unbuttoning his shirt. Sarah's breath caught as his chest emerged again, all muscle and scars, and barely contained power. The bandage was clean, the wound healing, but she didn't step back. "Sarah," he said softly, "don't." But she didn't move away from his hands when they came up to frame her face. "I know this is wrong." "Then why?" "Because I've been dead inside for 2 years. And you make me feel alive again." She could smell him, leather and pine and something essentially male. Could feel the heat radiating from his skin. When he leaned down, she knew she should pull away. Instead, she rose on her toes and met him halfway. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, then hungry, desperate. Years of loneliness poured into it, years of believing she was too old, too forgotten to be desired. Jack's hands tangled in her hair, and she pressed against him, feeling his heart thunder against her chest. When they broke apart, They were both breathing hard. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Crazy," he agreed, but his hands were still in her hair, his forehead pressed against hers. Outside, the wind picked up again. More snow coming. Jack would be trapped here another day at least. Sarah looked into his eyes and made a decision that would change everything. "The storm's getting worse," she said. "Looks like it. You might be here a while." "Might be." She stepped back, but her eyes never left his. "I'm going to make breakfast." "Then we're going to talk about Tommy. About everything." Jack nodded, not trusting himself to speak. But as Sarah turned toward the stove, she paused. "Jack? Yeah? I'm glad you came." He watched her move around the kitchen. This woman who'd somehow brought him back to life with a single kiss. Tommy's mother. His best friend's mother. The woman he was falling for harder than he'd ever fallen for anyone. This was going to destroy them both. By evening, the snow was falling so thick, Jack couldn't see the barn from the window. He was trapped, and they both knew it. The tension in the small cabin had been building all day, in stolen glances, in hands that lingered when passing dishes, in conversations that stopped mid-sentence when they got too close to dangerous territory. Sarah had changed into a clean dress, one that hugged her curves and made Jack's mouth go dry. She was beautiful, not in the painted doll way of saloon girls, but in the way of a woman who'd lived and loved and survived. There was something magnetic about her strength, her stubborn independence. "I found this," she said, producing a bottle of whiskey from a cabinet. "Been saving it for... I don't know what I was saving it for." They sat by the fire, passing the bottle between them. The alcohol loosened their tongues, their inhibitions. "Tell me about your husband," Jack said. Sarah's smile was sad. "Robert was a good man. Steady. Safe." She took a sip of whiskey. "Nothing like you. That a bad thing? I don't know yet." Jack studied her face in the firelight. "You ever wonder what would have happened if you'd married a different kind of man?" "What kind?" "The kind who'd have taken you away from here, shown you the world." "The kind who'd have gotten me killed, you mean?" "Maybe. Or maybe the kind who'd have made you feel alive." Sarah's breath caught. "I was alive. With Robert, I was safe," Jack finished. "There's a difference." They were sitting closer now, the whiskey and the fire's warmth making them bold. Sarah could see the pulse beating at Jack's throat, could smell his skin. "What about you?" she asked. "Ever been married?" "Once. She died." "I'm sorry. Long time ago, before I became..." He gestured vaguely at himself. "What? A man on the run? A man who destroys everything he touches." Sarah set down the bottle, turned to face him fully. "Is that what you think you're doing to me?" "Aren't I?" "Jack Rivers," she said, voice steady despite the whiskey. "I've been dead inside for 3 years. If this is destruction, then maybe it's the kind I need." Something shifted in Jack's eyes. "Sarah, I know what this is. I know what you are. And I know it can't last." "Then why?" "Because I'm 46 years old and I thought I'd never feel like a woman again. Because my son's been gone for 2 years and you're the first person who's made me believe he might come home. Because tomorrow you'll ride out of here and I'll go back to being alone. And I can't go back to that without knowing." "Knowing what?" "What it feels like to be desired one more time." Jack's control snapped. He pulled her to him, and this time the kiss wasn't gentle. It was hungry, desperate, full of need and longing, and the knowledge that this was all they'd ever have. Sarah melted into him, her hands exploring the solid muscles of his chest, his back. When he lifted her, carried her to the bed she'd shared with no one since Robert died, She didn't protest. What followed was tender and fierce by turns. Jack worshipped her body like a man who'd been starving, and Sarah responded like a woman reborn. They moved together by firelight, whispering endearments and confessions, losing themselves in sensation and connection. When it was over, they lay tangled together, breathing hard. "Jesus," Jack whispered. Sarah traced patterns on his chest with her fingertip. "We're going to hell for this." "Probably. Tommy would never forgive either of us." "No. So why don't I care?" Jack tightened his arms around her. "Because sometimes being alive matters more than being good." They made love again as the fire burned low, slower this time, savoring each touch, each kiss, each whispered word. Both of them knew it was ending before it began. When Sarah woke in the gray pre-dawn light, Jack was already up, getting dressed. She watched him from the bed, memorizing the sight of him. "The storm's passed," he said without looking at her. "I know. I have to go. I know that too." He turned then, and she saw the pain in his eyes. "Sarah, don't." She sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. "Don't make promises. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Jack finished dressing in silence. When he was ready, he sat on the edge of the bed and touched her face. "I'll find Tommy. I'll bring him home if I can. And if you can't, then I'll make sure he knows his mother loves him." Sarah nodded, tears threatening. "Will you tell him about us?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. "That's not my story to tell." Jack Rivers rode out as the sun broke over the mountains, and Sarah McKenna stood at her window watching until he disappeared into the morning mist. She pressed her hand to the glass, still feeling the warmth of his touch on her skin. 3 months later, she got a letter. Not from Tommy, from a sheriff in Sacramento. Tommy McKenna had been found dead in a mining accident. But with the letter came a small leather pouch full of gold dust and a note in handwriting she recognized. "Sarah, he talked about you till the end. Said to tell you he was sorry he never made it home. The gold was his. He wanted you to have it. There's enough to see you comfortable. He loved you. So did I. Jay." Sarah held the letter to her chest and cried for her boy, for the future that would never be, for a cowboy who'd given her one perfect night before disappearing forever. But she didn't regret it. Not the night, not the passion, not even the pain. For 48 hours, she'd been alive in a way she'd forgotten was possible. Jack had given her that gift, even as he'd taken everything else away. She used Tommy's gold to buy a small house in town, where she wouldn't have to face the long winters alone. Sometimes, on cold nights, she'd think about blue eyes and gentle hands and the taste of whiskey on a stranger's lips. She'd wonder if Jack was still alive somewhere, still running from whatever demons chased him. She never married again, but she lived. Really lived. Because sometimes, when the wind was just right, she could still feel him there in the shadows. Her son's friend, her one night's love, the man who'd taught her that it's never too late to burn bright, even if it's only for a moment. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the American frontier. Drop a comment and let me know. Where are you listening from tonight? And what would you have done in Sarah's place? Sometimes the heart wants what it wants, no matter the cost.